everybody, I have a little guest with me today. This is my mum's dog Barney, who's staying with me and my boyfriend over Christmas. Say hi, Barney. Hello. Hello. So he's going to be keeping me company today, and what I'm going to be painting is this pine shelf behind me. This is something that's been in my shop for a while, not necessarily for sale, just as a display piece. But what I find for some reason is that it's a little bit too low, and when people are coming into the shop they're not necessarily looking at the bottom shelf. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a paint, and not only will it be a display piece for the shop, but also I'm going to make it available for sale as well. And I want to do something really bright. I feel like I focus a lot on blues and greens. So I'm going to step out of that today, and I'm going to do something just really fun, bit of folk art, very bright, rustic and colourful. Aren't we, Barney? Is that what we're going to do, Barney? Barney says he approves. So the first colour I'm going to use today is Dixie Belle's Rusty Nail Chalk Mineral Paint. And this is just going to act as my base. Paint with, I'm going to use a this is just the mini angle brush from Dixie Belle, a synthetic brush. But honestly, I would say don't get too caught up in brushes on this project because it's going to be quite rustic, so I feel like you could just use whatever you have to hand. The nail colour, and I'm just going to basically paint the whole thing. It's quite nice coverage, so I'm probably just going to do one coat as well. The other thing I wanted to mention actually is, because this is a darker colour, don't worry about priming. If you're going in with a lighter colour with pine, you definitely need to prime, possibly even buy special primers for pine knots. But this is quite a dark colour anyway, so I'm not really going to be expecting any bleed through. Right, so we've got our rusty nail on there now, and it's time to add on some other colours. The next colour I'm going to use is Dixie Belle's Honky Tonk Red. Just going to use a mini angled brush again, and this is a very, very bright, vibrant, like postbox type red. And what I'm going to do is just put this in the middle, so the inside bit, and I'm going to leave this bit. I'm going to paint exactly the same as before, not going to overload my brush too much, but also I don't mind if there's a bit of texture, so I'm not going to use any water to thin the paint or anything out like that. Generally my brush strokes will follow the grain, so if the grain's this way, I'll go this way. But again, it doesn't really matter if I don't, because as I say, it's going to be a bit of an aged rustic look, as are most of my pieces. So you might be able to see the contrast between these reds now. So the rusty nail, I would say, it does have a red tinge to it, but it's more of an orangey brown, like rust. And this is a very bright red. So on the outside of this now, I'm going to use Kernel Mustard, and that's going to cover all this bit here. I am not sure if I'm actually keen on the colours. It's looking a bit like cartoonish, circusy, you know what I mean? And my boyfriend just walked in and he says, "Ooh, that looks interesting." I think he went from nice very quickly to interesting. And he says, "Well, I guess you're not done yet anyway." And I'm not, but then I was like looking at the colours, and I was like, but I was kind of done with the colours, but then I was like, I'm not done with the colours because, yeah, I'm not keen. So I'm just debating now whether to put some orange on it, like to tone down the red, or to put the rusty nail back on it, or to put some black glaze on it. So that's where I'm at. I definitely need to cool it all down a bit. So I think I'm going to Firstly, before I go back to the rusty nail, I'm actually just going to put some black glaze on it, and I'm just going to see how I feel about that and just see if it makes me feel better, because it is all going to be kind of sanded back and there's going to be like wax and dark wax and things added on, so it isn't going to look this bright at the end anyway. So I'm going to just, I guess, play and just see how it goes. So this is the black glaze, and with it I also have some water. I'm going to give it a good shake. When it goes on, it looks a weird colour, it looks kind of blue. So first things first, I'm going to give it a really good wet. Okay, like that. In my pocket here I have another brush, and let's just see how it goes. When it goes on, it looks not quite black, but it does dry black. I'm just going to carry on misting some water on it as I go along. I don't mind if the glaze is uneven, I just don't want it to be really strongly uneven, if that makes sense, like really overly scratchy. Like that, and I'm just going to work in sections. Let's go back to this section here, spray plenty of water. Maybe you can see the difference now between this bright red and the glaze that's gone on. It won't dry that colour. I don't think it's going to dry, probably a lot darker, but we'll just see how it goes, I guess. So I'm just going to do this corner now and just the same again. What I'm doing as well is when I'm getting into different corners and different parts of the piece, I'm making sure to carry on that brush stroke and follow the grain, because whatever I do with my brush when using this stuff, it's going to massively show up with the glaze. So if I'm like this, that's how the glaze is going to look. So I'm trying to be a little bit more careful. I've left the yellow alone, and while this is drying, I've actually made it look crazier than what I initially was going to. So it is going to be very rustic, but it does look kind of stark against the yellow right now, which is looking perfect. But it won't. I'm going to hold off actually grunging the yellow up until I've actually done some faux art, and I'm going to do lots of faux art all around the edges. I need some good brushes, like I'm desperate for some good brushes, but I really need to sit and research what I need. So for the time being, I've actually just gone to The Works, which is a shop in the UK, and I've picked up some fairly reasonably priced cheap brushes. Their brand is Crawford and Black, and they're an okay brand actually, to be fair, for the value of them. I mean, I've got 35 brushes for £15 and then a few for £3 there. So yeah. So this is going to be a little bit awkward in that this is the middle here, and then it kind of, you have more space there. So I'm somehow going to try and do a tiny little flower in the middle and then make them a little bit bigger to the side. I'm not sure how that's going to work. Asked me to start with a round brush, which I don't have, so I'm going to be using this one here, and if you can see, that's the size of it. And the colour that I'm going to start with is Cottage Door. I'm going to give it a little spray, just a tiny one, like that. I feel like I've maybe used a tiny bit too much water there. And I'm going to just kind of, let's see how this goes. Just fill that in a little bit. I've definitely used a bit too much water, it's dripping. Okay, so I've painted a circle. It's actually a little bit off centre, so I'm just going to make that a bit more symmetrical. I really struggle with symmetry, which is why I often paint like I do, but I'm going to challenge myself to try and be a little bit better at it. I'm not going to clean my brush, and I'm next using the colour Rustic Red. Put pressure on at the top and make it thinner as I go along. Just going to press on like this and then release the pressure to the bottom. I'm going to add a tiny bit more paint to that. Slowly, like that. And do the other side. So add on pressure, then put on less as I go along. So these are the strokes that I really want to learn that I'm not quite so good at yet. Actually just want to make them a bit thinner at the bottom. This is not what you should be doing with folk art. You should just be able to do the movement in one go, which I haven't done there, but that's fine. Then I've double loaded my brush with the Cottage Door and the Rustic Red. I'm just going to do the same again. More here though, and then bring it down like this. Do wonder if this brush is a tiny little bit big for this, but that's fine. Again, push on a little bit and then slowly release the pressure as I go along, like that. And same again here, like that. Okay, it's definitely not perfect, but that's okay. Also going to add some petals here, so I'm going to do a little petal here, a little petal here, using the same kind of brush strokes. Using my Rustic Red and a little petal here as well. A little dot here as well. I'm going to do one on this side, and I'm kind of just going to do the same again in that I'm going to paint a circle like this. Pop a little dot there so I know where I am with it, and put on a little pressure there and then release. Put on a little pressure there as well and then just slowly release. This brush is a bit big for sure. I'm going to move to this brush and just see how this does. Okay, then same again out here. Again. I'm kind of going to carry this along here, but I am going to bring some green into it now as well. These are the next colours that I'm going to be using just for the stems, and another brush like this. I've double dipped my brush. It's not focusing. Okay, but maybe you can see even though it's not quite focusing. And I'm actually going to start here, and I'm just going to release it like that. Five dots like that, and do some Okay, just to show you guys, this is how it's now looking, and I am going to give it a really light sand. I have some 120 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to, like I say, just give it a bit of a sand. Okay, up next I have a cup. I have Van Dyke brown glaze and some water. I'm going to add some of this to the cup. Actually, just let me pour a bit of that out. Probably going to do about a 70 to 30% solution of glaze to water. It's going to need more water. Okay, so it's quite runny. And then what I'm going to do on the yellow is, some of you now are going to be like, why are you doing that? Because it needs to look old. And I'm going to just run this across. It's quite drippy. Then I have some kitchen towel, and I'm going to just do what's called the ragging technique and just dab. and this is just going to help it look. And the trick is with this is to build it up slowly rather than just going crazy and, you know, adding loads at once. Like, tip a little bit in, add some water, and then just see how you go, and then add more glazing if you really want to. This piece is now ready to be waxed, and I'm going to be using Dixie Belle spray wax as well as Dixie Dirt Earth, which is going to allow me to kind of create my own wax almost. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray this on, fairly generous amount. I've got an old rag, which is just an old t-shirt, and I'm just going to rub that in a little, like that. So I'm just going to get like a kind of base layer of wax on first. Then I'm going to just spray a little bit more. The Dixie Dirt is like a powder, and all I'm going to do is just dip my brush in like that and just start dabbing this on a little bit like this. Sorry, that was my feet squeaking then. And all this is going to do, like I said, it's going to allow me to make my wax, my decorative wax. So instead of using dark wax, this is going to allow me to make it as dark and as thick as I want. So that's kind of, you know, it's kind of like pigment. Just look at it as pigment for the clear wax, to add to the clear wax. And then if I want it a little bit less, I'm just going to just use my t-shirt just to rub that out a little bit and soften it up on my rag rather, you know. You can also use brushes for this if you like, if you didn't want to use a rag. And it's quite easy as that. But what I love about this, so you can just keep building it up as much as you want. So I'm doing these little tapping movements to create a bit of texture. So I do want it quite dirty because it is going to look quite old, as do most of my pieces. There we have it. Okay, so I'll bring you in a bit closer. I'll just do this side. And I do want this fairly subtle. I don't want a crazy amount of wax on this. I want it to look quite soft, and that's the reason why I'm doing it this way instead of using the dark wax instead. However, if all you had to hand was dark wax, then that would be perfectly fine as well. I do love the smoky look this gives it. Again, just give it a little rub to make sure that wax is nice and rubbed in there. Just buff it out a little. But yeah, I mean, it is subtle. If you're looking close, you can kind of see it. If I pull you out, it is very soft, but hopefully you can see it just a tiny bit compared to the rest of the piece. Here's how the finished piece looks. This one was so much fun, but definitely out of my comfort zone, but I want to explore more colour and more folk art in the future. I love it when things look older and not pristine and like they've always been rustic. But let me know what you guys think to this makeover. I had loads of fun and I hope you did too watching, and as always guys, have a great time painting.